Hello and welcome, I'm Davis. You probably already know me if you're from Facebook. Maybe you're from somewhere else, you clicked on the video, wanted to see what's up, see what this is about. Thank you for joining. Really cool to have you here. Appreciate your time. Just wanted to have, start a podcast show, whatever, to talk about horror, because I don't really have many. I have friends that like horror movies, but I guess none to my extent, at least in the area. Thought it'd be a good way to get people interested, or if you have a curiosity, expand on it. Called it Tales from the Beanbag because sitting in a beanbag chair, one of my all-time best ideas of purchases. Very happy. I love this freaking thing. Got my co-host here. Had a couple drinks so far. A little nervous. Never filmed a video in front of the camera before, me talking, because I don't really like talking that much about much. This is probably the only thing I really care to talk about. And yeah, it's a little hard to, sit in like the break room at work and talk about your favorite kills from like Friday the 13th. It's just not socially acceptable. For good reason, I guess, but oh well. So in case you don't know me, I thought I'd start off this video with a little bit about myself in case you don't. I'm 26 years old. I work 2 jobs. I am a workaholic. My main job, at least right now, is graveyard, so it's a little hard to have much of a life, but I guess I'm probably getting off of that soon, and I'll just be working like 7 days a week, which doesn't bother me. I like working. It's fun, keeps me busy, keeps me motivated. I bought my first house last year. Very proud of that, especially today's housing market, especially where I live in Spokane. It's a pretty big achievement. I'm very proud of it. Love my house. Looking forward to the next house, whatever. Put a lot of work. I spend a lot of time on my house. One of my hobbies, I guess. Aside from horror, my first and even longer interest is music. I primarily like rock and metal. I spent, when I was a teenager, spent a lot of time in the local metalcore, deathcore scene. That wasn't the best experience, but I'll go to shows every now and then. Yesterday I just saw Under Oath for the 3rd time. Awesome. Loved it. I like pretty much anything rock, metal, like industrial rock, some death metal. I like alternative. I love acoustic type music, piano music, punk rock, just about some rap, just about anything, really, aside from country and your typical kind of kid bullshit like mumble rap. I don't really care for it. Freaking hate ska. Who wants trombones and music? I don't know. I love music. I've been playing bass guitar since I was about 18, off and on. Probably see some covers in the channel, but I love playing bass. Trying to learn more instruments. I guess aside, I like my jobs, but my main dream is to be a horror filmmaker, which I guess would make sense to you. Written a couple short stories or short films that I kind of declined on working for. I know it makes sense to start small, but I guess I'm not really that kind of person. I'm kind of working on a feature, stop motion, rock metal horror movie, which goes in perfectly with today's subject if you saw the title of the video. But that's really what I'm looking forward to. I don't know, I feel like, I've always been into movies. When I was little, I'd watch anything. I've always been a film fan. Started off, sci-fi was really big as a kid, for me as a kid. I loved Marvel movies, comic book movies. I had every one. I guess now they're so popular, I don't really get excited when a new comic book movie comes out. The Batman movie looks awesome. I'm definitely going to see it as soon as I can. I I also collect comic books. I love comic books. Yeah, I don't know. Video games aren't that much as important to me, so a little bit about myself. Thought I'd, go into why I like horror so much, how I got into it. And I guess, horror isn't really something you get into as a kid. I mean, you can. It's not really, doesn't really align with good parenting, which I would say makes sense. Probably shouldn't show your kids the whole Elm Street series at like 5. It's probably not a good idea. I mean, some people have this like really picturesque story of how they every Friday night they sneak down to the basement and watch Joe Bob on Monster Vision, or like their dad would take them to the B-movie double feature. I don't really have that. I mean, used to read Goosebumps and all sorts of crap. Watch, I guess, gateway movies as a kid. I guess that laid the seed for me as a kid. But I didn't really get into horror until I was, I don't know, I think the first like legitimate horror movie I watched, I was probably 15. Like, I watched Children of the Corn at a friend's house. Not the best movie, but got me into it. I guess I just started watching in high school, etc., and never stopped, and then I went super into it. Pretty big nerd, that's my nerd thing. A lot of people are into comics or whatever. This is my nerd thing. Kind of weird. Whatever, I'll watch any kind of horror movie. I used to watch one a day. I don't always have the time for that, but I'll watch any kind of horror movie, or I'll watch any movie in general. Started collecting a lot. I mostly collect like practical stuff. Like, my Blu-ray collection is mostly what I collect. That's my pride and joy. I collect a lot of artwork from horror movies, posters, etc. I like the displaying of art is really fun for me. I do have, some action figures, collectibles, etc. Magazines, comic books. I have a ton of autographs, some from people I've met. Last year was my first year at Crypticon Seattle. I already have next year planned out. Super excited because last year was probably the best week of my life. I mean, a few years ago I met like Jamie Kennedy at the comedy club, from the Scream movies. And last year at Crypticon I met Joe Bob Briggs himself, David Naughton, a bunch of people from the Elm Street movies, Tarman, etc. I'm really excited for next year, because these are really, really interesting, fun people to meet. It's cool they're really nice people typically. I think, I don't know, being into horror, the misconception is that we're all a bunch of like weird deviants who like watching blood and guts and shit, and that's kind of not, I mean, it kind of is, and it's kind of not the case. It's kind of unfortunate that people think that, but I mean, it kind of is well deserved. But I think horror does a lot for me and a lot of other super fans of the genre, because it's a way for people to kind of dig into your fears and explore that, a way to kind of introspect a little bit. Yeah, I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain. Just, I guess, in my opinion, the two biggest emotions in in human existence are love and fear. And, love is something you experience with people, and you see it a lot in movies too, music especially. But fear, obviously horror is the number one place to experience fear. A lot of people will say, oh, I don't want to pay money to be scared. I can see that perspective, but that's not really what drives us, I'd say. Just, it's really, I don't know, going in to see a movie of your biggest fear is kind of thrilling in a way. I guess my first real memory of being scared was and this isn't his fault or anything, but I remember my dad when I was, I don't know, I want to say like 4 or so, read either he just, I can't remember the event exactly, but either he read or told me the story of Hansel and Gretel, and damn, that just scared the shit out of me. That's the most horrifying story I think you could tell a kid. And I was afraid of witches forever as a kid. I lived like right on the cusp of the woods, and I would just like go outside and be terrified of witches. So, as I got older and I watched more horror movies like Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters, even though it's an action movie, still scared the shit out of me and kind of helped me a lot. Then, learning about Salem witch trials and the Crucible kind of helped. I mean, that's real stuff, but, Robert Eggers' The Witch, one of the scariest movies I've ever seen, because I'm afraid of witches, or was. I mean, now it's not, doesn't even enter my mind at all. If I see a girl at a party dressed as a witch, I'd probably think she's the hottest girl in the room, and I'd go ask her out for a drink. So, I guess it's a way to deal with things in a weird way. That's what art does for a lot of people. That's what it does for me. Just love horror, love everything about it. Some more than others, but anyways, that's a little bit about me, a little bit of background. Subject of the day I'm really excited about. Got 3, because I've been waiting so long to do it. So let's dig into it. We got rock and metal, horror movies, couple TV shows. This is, as I said, my favorite kind of subgenre, if you will. I guess it's not really, it's kind of a topic. But yeah, anytime anything rock or metal in a movie gets me excited as a music fan. I'm always hyped for it. Yeah, there's almost everything I got on this list is a good movie. There's some exceptions, some pretty bad ones. They're not all great, but there's been a lot of, especially since the 80s, we've seen a lot of rock and metal movies get popular, especially in horror. It's not just horror, but today I want to talk about some of these. Wanted to start off by talking about, just the music in general, because horror has, I think it probably influenced music first, and then we've seen music influence horror afterwards, because music is really an integral part of horror. It's an integral part of film in general, but horror specifically. It's like, probably the number one name that comes to mind would be Alice Cooper, because I freaking love Alice Cooper. I'd imagine a lot of people do. I mean, you see it through his aesthetic. His live show, which I've seen, was amazing. The dude's 7 years old and he's still one of the baddest dudes on the planet. Bands like White Zombie, Black Sabbath obviously got their names from classic horror movies. It just kind of never ends with the Misfits, Kiss, etc. Then newer bands like Slipknot, Rob Zombie, Gore from 80s, 90s, 2000s. We're even seeing it like today with music that from my generation, or I guess maybe after, Motionless in White, very popular. It's a huge horror vibe. The biggest one and probably most obvious would be Ice Nine Kills. I've seen them 5 times. I'm a little bummed I'm missing their latest show because it's sold out, but they've got 2 albums so far. Well, they've got other albums, but 2 that thematically every song matches a classic horror movie, which is great. The music videos they do are great. I recommend you check them out if you're a fan. But carrying on, there's a lot of, rock stars, etc. that have made the transition from music to film. We've seen that with directors. Obviously, Rob Zombie is the guy that comes to mind. Say what you will about his movies. They're kind of hit or miss. They're not high art. He's making grindhouse movies and like Texas Chainsaw throwbacks. which are in their own right great movies. I mean, I think Halloween 2's like one of the worst movies ever made, and I could have easily put Lords of Salem on this list. I didn't because I fucking hate that movie. I mean, his wife's probably a great lady, but she's a terrible, terrible actress. The Munsters movie he's doing looks pretty good, honestly. Kind of excited for that. Next one, Fred Durst, from my boy from Limp Bizkit. He's a director. He mainly does music videos, which are really good. He's done some dramas that have gotten some decent reviews, but the one he did, the Fanatic with John Travolta, one of the worst movies I've ever seen. It's a great time, though. We'll talk about it at some point. And then the third one that I could think of is Glenn Danzig. I mean, obviously the Misfits, etc. are a very influential punk rock band. I'm not going to say anything bad about them, but him as a person seems like a douche. Like, if you're watching this, you can come fight me. I'm taller than you. I'm not that afraid. I hear your movies are pretty awful. I don't know. I mean, one guy at Crypticon said, like, that Veronica movie or whatever was just trash. I think he talked about it at 3 different panels I saw. And I don't have any desire to see the movie, but him talking about it was so much fun. I kind of want to see him talk about it again. I mean, and this whole list is really an extension from a panel I saw at Crypticon where they talked about a lot of these movies. I mean, I added a lot more because I'm such a big fan, but I just really enjoyed it and wanted to talk about it more. But yeah, I mean, you've even seen rock stars go into composing, like Danny Elfman, from which a lot of people forget he's from Oingo Boingo, which now he's one of the most recognizable composers out there. Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, Nine Inch Nails, like he's won an Academy Award so far. Did some great movies. They're one of my favorites. Actors, I mean, some actors become more recognizable for their movies than their music. Like, a lot of people forget that Jack Black was in Tenacious D or don't even know they exist, which kind of surprises me. But now Jack Black obviously is one of the top grossing actors of all time. He's awesome. I love Jack Black. David Bowie obviously did more music than he did movies, but his movies are great. He is a great actor. I wish he did more. But the movies we got from him are really cool, and he was always good in them. Meatloaf, that's another guy who, I mean, he didn't have any he unfortunately just passed, but he didn't have any starring roles, but supporting roles, he is known almost more for an actor than he was a singer. Did tons of movies. Same with Tom Waits is another guy who did a ton of movies. Always a great actor. Awesome in everything he does. Probably the most critically acclaimed and like consistently acting is Jared Leto, 30 Seconds to Mars, which I don't really care too much for them. Kind of not that great. I mean, say what you will about his appearance as the Joker, but you know, Requiem for a Dream, American Psycho, some of the best movies you could ever watch. And you know, I think my favorite rock star turned actor is Henry Rollins, Black Flag, who I'm gonna meet in May. I'm super excited. I mean, he's done a lot of movies, smaller roles, but like Heat, Lost Highway. Never watched Sons of Anarchy, but I hear he was in that and he was really good. He was, you know, one of the better parts in the horror movies, Feast and Wrong Turn 2. He also did, which I hope gets a sequel, one of my favorite movies of all time, in his first starring role. It's called He Never Died. Highly recommend it. It's not a rock movie, but it's still a horror movie. It's awesome. Marilyn Manson himself has done quite a few movies. He did one starring role. It's a movie called Let Me Make You a Martyr. It wasn't that great, but he was great in it. Like, I hear he was also great in Sons of Anarchy. He even was in Salem. He shows up every now and then. I like him as an actor, almost better than his music, and I like his music. Obviously, I said Alice Cooper's been in a ton of shit. We'll talk about one of his movies, but he was in was it Elm Street Part 6, Freddy's Dead? He played Freddy's dad. He was also in Prince of Darkness, some cameos, really memorable cameos. I mean, he's in Wayne's World, how can you forget that? But his horror movie cameos are awesome too. Dee Snider's been in a lot of horror movies. Like he didn't direct it, but he wrote Strangeland, which I have yet to see. I've heard it's great, but I love Dee Snider. Then even like Corey Taylor's been popping up in horror movies every now and then. And, you know, I think he's picking probably the worst movies he could pick to be in. Like, I've seen some of them and they're not good. But, you know, I'm sure he'll do a little better. His appearance in Fear Clinic, that was a decent movie. It's pretty good, but I don't know. You see cameos from rock stars in every movie, especially horror. I think my personal favorite was Chester Bennington in Saw 3D when he plays the skinhead and he's stuck to the car. You know, he peels his skin off. It's awesome. I love that appearance. But, you know, music, even in horror movies, has almost always been popular. Like, in the 80s, there was this really kind of seemed like a weird time where bands were doing theme songs for movies, and it kind of seemed out of place, but it kind of didn't. I mean, the most notable ones that I could find were, like, Ramones did song for Pet Sematary, Motorhead did song for Hellraiser 3, Alice Cooper, of course, did one for Friday Part 6 called He's Back. It's a great song. And my favorite, even though I think this band sucks, is Dokken did the song Dream Warriors for Elm Street Part 3, which I saw them open for Alice Cooper, and I was like, man, I hope they play this. And they did, and it was like the only good moment of the show. But, I mean, heavy metal continued into movies like late 90s, early 2000s. There was every franchise, or like Texas Chainsaw, Resident Evil, Saw, House of Thousand Corpses, of course, etc. Had like this, every, you know, movie had like this soundtrack that had like Disturbed, Fear Factory, and Cold Chamber on it, and like it kind of fit the movies and it kind of didn't. It depended, but super popular at the time. I mean, kind of fits in. Whatever, but you know, the influence of metal in horror is undeniable, and it's, I don't know, it's, yeah, so I have quite a few movies, some that were talked about at the panel, a lot I chose to include. Almost all of these are good. I mean, there's some that I didn't put on the list. If I haven't seen it, I can't talk about it, or I just kind of don't want to, like Lords of Salem, I already said sucked ass, I hated it. Queen of the Damned is one I haven't seen because I don't care to see it, because it does have one of those soundtracks with like new metal. I saw John Davis play some of those songs. It's a great soundtrack. The movie doesn't look that good. I don't really care to see it. Phantom of the Paradise by Brian De Palma is the earliest one of this nature that I could find, from like 1972. Haven't seen it yet. It looks great. I'm gonna watch it at some point. But every other movie on this list I've seen. Got a couple TV shows. They're all pretty much good movies. There's some bad ones, but I'm gonna start off with two TV shows, and actually two of my favorite TV shows, two short-running TV shows, only 2 seasons apiece. They're both on Shudder. If you don't know what Shudder is, it's a streaming service. You can get it through like Prime channels. It's like $6 a month. It's got a ton of good shit. It's my favorite streaming service, and I am trying to make it a point to like say if it is available, because a lot of movies like this are kind of hard to find. I'm one of those people who's willing to pay $50 for an out-of-print Blu-ray. You're probably not, so if it's on something, I'll be like, yo, I know this is on Amazon, check it out. But yeah, Shudder's awesome. It's got a ton of cool shit. But these two are both on Shudder. At least the seasons are. First one I want to talk about it's a show called Holliston. It was only on for 2 seasons, of course, but it's about 2 filmmakers, Adam Green and Joe Lynch. If you don't know who they are, Adam Green is primarily known for directing and creating the Hatchet franchise, which is one of my favorite lesser-known recent slasher franchises. He's a great filmmaker. And Joe Lynch, who's done a couple movies. He's not as well known, but he also shout out Nights of Badassdom. He filmed here in Spokane at Riverfront Park. It's kind of cheesy, but fun. But it's one of my favorite shows, and it holds a really special place in my heart because it's like a sitcom, which there isn't a horror sitcom, but yeah, it's a sitcom about these two friends who want to make a horror movie together. It's got like a lot of cheesy jokes, a lot of great horror cameos. It's like, at what point in a sitcom do you see someone's head get cut off and blood spurting out? It's hilarious, but I'm going to talk about these two in the next series in later detail because I want to do a series about horror TV shows. But the reason I put it on this list, even though it's not about, music in general, is it does feature two rock icons. First off, Mr. D. Snyder's in it. I don't really like Twisted Sister that much because obviously they're kind of corny. I mean, they're classics, but he plays the two leads boss in the show, a guy called Lance Rocket, basically himself, but it's awesome. I think he's a great dude. It seems like he's really funny in the show. His character is in a Van Halen cover band, and they start playing original Van Halen songs. I love the character. The second character that appears is Odorous Urungus of Gore. Rest in peace. We miss you, but he plays Adam's imaginary best friend who lives in the closet, which, if you have a best friend, why not him? But he, comes out and calls Adam a pussy and just roasts him all the time. He's definitely the highlight of the show. It won't be the same without him. I hope they do bring the show back. I mean, he has the best monologue in the show. I love it. Just one more day. But they've talked about bringing the show back. I hope they do. They brought some comics out. I love the show. But, the second one is Todd and the Book of Pure Evil. This is probably even less well known. Only went on for 2 seasons too. But it's a Canadian show. Features Jason Mewes from Jay and Silent Bob fame. It's kind of almost a teen show-ish, but, not really. Kind of reminds me of Nickelodeon Ned's Declassified show for horror fans, but it's got great cast, really likable people. It's almost kind of a musical-ish. They got, they'll break out dance and a rock kind of song. It's fun. The cast works. The effects are great. It's one of my favorite shows ever. It's pretty easy to watch. They actually brought it back for a movie a couple years after it ended. It's animated. The movie's really hard to find, but it's still really good. I love both shows. They're awesome. Check them out if you got time. They're both on Shudder, as I said. But I'm going to get into the movies. I'm going to start off with one. This one in particular isn't even a horror. It's a drama. I put it on the list mostly because it's about a real fear that people have, music fans have, and if you like movies, you'll like this, but if you're a music fan, definitely check it out. It's The Sound of Metal. It came out, I think, 2 years ago. I was really surprised it didn't get nominated for more awards, because it's really that good. Riz Ahmed plays the lead. He's fantastic in it. Olivia Cook and him have great chemistry. It's just a great movie. It's really touching and moving, but it's got a really great story that I think any music fan would connect to. So it's an Amazon original. Go check that out. It's awesome. If you don't like horror movies and you watch this one, it's the highest quality one on the list, I think. But the other one, the most recent one I guess I saw, aside from one other that I watched a couple hours ago, is Yesterday I went to the theaters and saw Studio 666, the Foo Fighters movie, which I was really pleasantly surprised because, not that I don't like Foo Fighters, they're not typically my cup of tea, but they're a great band. Dave Grohl's a legend. They never put out bad music, I don't think, but it's not really quite my thing to listen to all the time. But when I heard that they were doing a horror movie, I was like, really, this is gonna be awful? Then it got good reviews. I was like, okay, maybe I'll see it. Then I was there, I was like, sure, why don't I see it? And I was really pleasantly surprised, because whenever like a real band goes and plays themselves and stuff in a horror movie, I guess like Kiss did and stuff, and I heard it sucked. But this is kind of like Beatles' Help or Hard Day's Night or like Pick a Destiny, kind of for horror fans. Like, yeah, the dialogue's kind of corny, and when they're trying to be funny, it doesn't work, but everything about this movie was awesome. I was really surprised. The practical effects are good, the CGI is good. Sure, the story's kind of generic, but you got great cameos. Jeff Garland, Will Forte, Whitney Cummings. I won't spoil the plot for you. If you want to go see it, definitely go see it. It's awesome. It's definitely the gold standard for like horror movies done by real bands. It was awesome. Definitely go check it out. Couldn't have been better. But yeah, Studio 666. Go see it. The next one, this one, The Crow. It's not really a music movie, but considering that the main character, as far as I can remember, was a musician, and it does feature one of those like late 90s nu metal kind of soundtracks. But I mean, I think probably most people have seen The Crow. It's awesome. I mean, it's more action than horror, but it's definitely a rock movie. It's definitely inspired by rock. It's awesome. Brandon Lee was great in the movie. How do you not like The Crow? Yeah, it's awesome. Another one kind of like that from about the same time is Idle Hands. It's also not about music, but it does have one of those soundtracks. It's very much a metal movie. Even features like the Offspring play on stage in a scene, like get their heads ripped off, but it's awesome. And unfortunately, it was a victim of bad timing because it was released, I want to say, around the same time that Columbine happened. And if you don't know the plot of the movie, it's about a kid who, I can't remember, but his hand gets cut off and like starts going around killing people around the school. Just kind of, just a victim of bad timing. It's a fun movie. It stars like Seth Green, Devin Sawa, all those like 90s teen guys and gals. It's a fun movie. I like it a lot. But yeah. Another movie this one, I don't want to call a bad movie. I just kind of don't like it because, not that I don't like musicals, but it's Repo the Genetic Opera. A lot of people love this movie. I know it's a cult film. I like Darren Lynn Bousman a lot as a director, but yeah, this movie, I don't get it. It wasn't for me, so I can't trash it. As far if you like music, if you like Rocky Horror Picture Show, you'll definitely love this movie. I don't know what it was about it. It's weird kind of how they fetishize the blood and guts and stuff. Just wasn't for me. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't like The Devil's Carnival either. That's another one I could have put on here, but I don't know. It wasn't for me. But check it out if you like that kind of stuff. Alright, next one is a movie called Dead Ant. I hate this movie. I hate everything about it. It sucks. I got the Blu-ray in a subscription box. It's somewhere up here. I hate it. It's so bad. And it's got a cast of burnout actors, and the idea, it's obviously about a rock band that gets chased by ants. They're on their way to Coachella to make a comeback tour. It's not funny. It's awful. Everything about this movie sucks. I feel embarrassed that Sean Astin's in it because I love Sean Astin. But yeah, this movie sucks ass. I hate it. it's awful. I kind of want to throw the Blu-ray away, but like I don't know. Yeah, it's so bad. Okay, yeah. Next movie, I actually saw more recent than Studio 666 because I watched it a few hours ago. Like I went and bought it, $20. I'll never get back. It's not a good movie. Monster Dog, with Alice Cooper as the lead. Like, I love Alice Cooper, and like I watched this movie I think a few years ago on TV, and I turned it off because really the best part of this movie is the music video at the beginning. It's the song like he did 2 songs for the movie. That's definitely the highlight of the movie. But yeah, it's awful. It's directed by the same guy who did the worst, what's he obviously considers one of the worst movies of all time, Troll 2. Just sucks. The effects are really bad. The acting's bad. I mean, Alice Cooper is a decent actor. Maybe this is why he didn't do another one. But the movie, it's awful. I hate it. But yeah, I mean, guess now I got the Blu-ray. Whatever. Yeah, another movie from about the same time period is Black Roses. Came out in 1988. I had heard about this movie at the panel, and Joe Bob was showing it on the last drive-in. I was like, sure, I'll give it a watch. God, it's even worse than Monster Dog. Like, one of the things Joe Bob says in the episode is, I don't know who the lead character is. I don't either. The movie doesn't make any damn sense. It's trash. Like, the music's not even good in this one. For, like, the song in Studio 666 is freaking awesome, or whatever. They did a great job with the music. But Black Roses, like, the band was a real band from, like, Carmen Apis and Quiet Riot, King Cobra, whatever. It's about, like, band that inspires, like, youth to kill themselves, like, in people, and so it's awful. The effects are bad. Yeah, who is the lead character? It doesn't make a lick of sense. Nothing about this movie is good. It's not even, like, one of those, like, fun movies to watch. It sucks. I hate it. Yeah. Another one that I wanted to talk about was the only one on this list that is kind of considered a kid's movie. I wouldn't consider it a kid's movie because I wouldn't show it to a kid. But The Gate from 1987 stars a young Stephen Dorff in his first acting role, maybe. But it's a classic. It's a good movie. Kids play a record that opens a gate to hell in their backyard. I mean, it's about kids, so maybe that's why people are showing it to their kids. It's kind of a Poltergeist ripoff, but this movie goes pretty hard for a movie featuring kids. Like, Jesus, like, there's like stabbing in the eye and stuff, and then there's a zombie guy. I watched this a couple days ago because I couldn't remember if I saw it. But yeah, I mean, it's not bad. It's a classic. Just wait till your kid's a little older to show them this. But I like the movie. I don't have anything bad to say about it. Another one that I really had better hopes for was We Summon the Darkness. It might be on, I think it's on Netflix. But this movie sucks too. It's pretty bad. I had pretty high hopes for it because, I mean, Johnny Knoxville appears in it, and him I think he plays a priest in a horror movie, sound kind of intriguing. But this movie sucks. It tries to be like Detroit Rock City for horror fans, and it's just not. And I don't remember anything about it because I just don't really care. I think I have the Blu-ray of it too. Maybe I should just start throwing stuff in the trash. But yeah, the movie sucks. I hate it. Another one. This is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's sick. It's Mandy. And this movie, it's definitely a metal movie, influence movie, but it doesn't feature any, like, music as integral to the plot like these movies. I include it because, yeah, it's heavily inspired, but like the characters like rock and metal, and the soundtrack is amazing. It's one of the best horror movie soundtracks, but it's metal inspired. Like, yeah, this movie's awesome. It's got Nicolas Cage in one of his best roles. And, like, if you think of Nicolas Cage in a horror movie, don't think of The Wicker Man. Think of Mandy. This movie's awesome. It's one of the movies I'll show to just about anybody. Yeah, it's a little avant-garde and art house and kind of off. It's a little, puts people off, but it's got the perfect level of Nicolas Cage, serious and unhinged. It's simple, it's fun. It's got some of the most beautiful cinematography. I love this movie. It's amazing. Another one, which is definitely a hidden gem that no one really saw, was The Devil's Candy. I don't remember too much about this movie, but it has Ethan Embry, and he's you don't even realize it's him. It's awesome. I can't remember much about the movie, but it's really good. I need to rewatch it at some point. Definitely check it out if you like. Another movie that I would recommend, it's not the best. I saw it in theaters when it came out a few years ago. It's American Satan. It's it's from Sumerian Records. If you don't know what that is, that's a pretty much metalcore label. It's one of the labels a lot of bands I listen to are on. The president of the record label directed this. It's not the best movie. It's a Faustian tale. I don't know, it's kind of a Hot Topic movie. It's like Black Roses, but Hot Topic. The music's really good, though. I think so, because it's my cup of tea. But, the movie stars Andy Black from Black Veil Brides, which I don't like them, but his voice is really good, I think. And it's weird because I guess the label that Black Veil Brides is on wouldn't let him sing on the movie. So the band The Relentless in the movie is, their lyrics are sung by the guy from Palais Royale, which he's good, but it's a weird disconnect. It also features Ben Bruce from Asking Alexandria in the movie. It's got, Drake Bell and Malcolm McDowell. It's a decent movie. It's really stylish. It's like watching a 90-minute music video. It's pretty cool, though. Definitely stay away from the TV series they made of it called Paradise City. That sucked, though, but the movie's okay. Next one is Green Room. If you haven't seen Green Room, definitely check it out. It's from A24. I know that means a lot to people because they're the hip studio. I mean, they're mostly a distribution company, but it's probably the best straight horror movie on this list. It's got, the late Anton Yelchin, and Sir Patrick Stewart appears in it against type. He's playing a skinhead in probably one of his best roles, I think. But, it's about a punk band who goes and plays at a skinhead bar on accident. And they think it's fun to play Dead Kennedys. Nazi punks fuck off in the venue. And it ends up badly, and it's just non-stop from start to finish, and it's so good. It's really awesome. It's the best horror movie on this list, I would say. Definitely check it out. The next one I got is a movie, Uncle Peckerhead. It came out a few years ago. I was expecting this movie to be dog shit like a couple other movies on this list, but damn, this movie was awesome. It's about another punk band that goes on tour, and they meet, basically a zombie guy, and he starts, causing shit and trouble. But, no known actors of any sort, but they're all, they feel like a real band, and it's super endearing. They got great chemistry, and it's just a fun time. The guy who plays the title character, Uncle Peckerhead, he's awesome. It's just really, it's hilarious, it's good. I loved it. I was really surprised how much I liked it. But yeah, a couple movies left. We got, this one here is actually the only movie on the list that is based on a real event. Called Lords of Chaos. It's based on a book which I haven't read, but it's kind of a true crime book. If you're not familiar with the history of like metal, black metal in specific, I don't like black metal at all. I mean, I appreciate its influence on some of the music I like that it's had, but I don't like it. But yeah, it's about bands like Burzum, and then Mayhem's the main focal point of the movie. If you don't know the story, like, just look into the story. It's one of the reasons why Satanic Panic and like explicit labels and stuff and controversy was so much around metal in the, well, this happened in the 90s, but still around that time. But yeah, it's based off a true story where Varg Vikernes, I think it's pronounced, who's not really a good person. I mean, obviously he's a convicted murderer, but he said some pretty shitty stuff about, minorities, etc. But he kills their guitarist, Euronymous, and like, shit really happened. It's unfortunate, but all sorts of drama happened. There's other killings, like the lead singer of the band committed suicide, and for whatever reason they decided to take a picture of that and make it their album art. Like, this is kind of the people we got here. They're just trying to be really edgy Satanists, and they are, and that's kind of, I guess, where the stereotype came from. But yeah, I mean, who knew Sweden in 1991 was this crazy? Like, they lit churches on fire and stuff. Like, this is a real story. And yeah, I mean, the movie's not really true to events, but it's also a movie, so who cares? I mean, I know metal fans like to pick this movie apart, but yeah, who cares? It's not supposed to be. Yeah, the movie itself is a little MTV-ish. I thought Rory Culkin was pretty good in it, but like the acting's a little off. But it's directed by a guy who is also in the scene in that area at the time, from what I researched, which is cool. That kind of gives it a little, at least some authenticity. It's better than having some schmo direct it. But it's really good. I liked it. I gotta read the book at some point. But I saved the best for last. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. It's called Deathgasm. Might still be on Netflix. This movie is awesome. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. It's not the best, but it's the most fun. It came out 5-6 years ago. It's, yeah, the music is awesome in this movie. Couple of kids in a metal band find a book and a song that brings a bunch of demons out into the world, and I mean, kind of generic plot, but the effects are awesome. It's so much fun. The cast is really likable. It's New Zealand. It's from New Zealand, so yeah, it's a little different kind of world there, I guess. But the cast is all really charismatic. It's super fun to watch. I love everything about this movie. It's just so much fun. There's a fight scene with dildos. It even features probably my favorite, romance of all time in the movie. Like, you've probably seen the picture of Brody and Medina sitting on the park bench together. Kind of like became really popular. I don't know. I think it's kind of like this really sweet, genuine part of the movie. I don't know. I'm a hopeless romantic. I feel like, that meme where like it's like guys only want one thing and it's fucking disgusting. And like, yeah, this is what I want. Like, sue me, I don't know. It's really sweet. I don't know. This is probably why I've shown at least 2 girls I've been on dates with this movie, and they didn't keep seeing me, but I'm gonna keep trying, So yeah, I don't know. If you go on a date with me, I'll probably make you see this movie. If you're at my house, I will probably put this movie in. If you say you want to watch a movie, like, I won't let anybody borrow this movie. It's so good. I love it. Watch it. There's nothing bad about it. It's fun. I love it. But yeah, those are kind of all the movies. There's some, there's some obscure movies that have came out here and there that I haven't really added to the list, but these are all the ones I could really find. Most of them are a lot of fun. They're not super deep, but they don't need to be. It's a rock movie. It's a horror movie. It's a good time. I don't know. But, hopefully maybe you learned something, got some recommendations. We appreciate you watching. I'm going to put up a new video probably next week. Got 2 more this week. So, like, subscribe, whatever the people say. I don't know if you want to, if you want to come over, join, give me an excuse to buy a beanbag. You don't have to be an actor or whatever. I can't imagine I'll be like that popular where people want to be like, yo, can I come on your show? No, like if you're a friend, give me an excuse to buy another beanbag. Let's talk about movies. Film it, put it online. I don't know, let's have fun. But, thank you for watching. Have a good day. Have the best day ever.